July 8th, 2022, pre-planning commission meeting for, yeah, that's right, for July 8th. We'll start. Joe, you're sitting in for Gabrielle. Do you have any announcements before we start?
No, ma'am, this is just the pre-planning commission, so it's not meant to discuss the issues going on. It's meant for staff to give you an update on anything that has happened since the workshop. And if you request any information, we'll try to gather that information for the planning commission on Monday.
Perfect, thank you. So the first item on the agenda for Monday night is the continuance. I don't see David, Simon.
No, ma'am.
Can you let us?
Yeah, I can take that for David. So this is the Grove Hill Master Plan. Pardon me. It's being continued. There's an issue with the road sections that they proposed and the road sections that are in our manuals. And so Shrada and Cherian and the applicants are working out the cross sections for the roads.
Okay. Do either Ron or Dorothy have any questions?
No questions.
That sounds good. Let's go on to the next agenda item for Monday night is Wayside. Pam, do you have anything to tell us about Wayside?
Not really. You have the 3 modifications, as you know. 2 of the first modifications are for the facade with the brick and where it would be placed. The brick for some flexibility for different levels of heights as the first modification. Second one is for the base to be brick. And then the third modification is for the entrance, I believe. Yes, the primary entrance off of the creek for the second building. And then the approval of the architectural compliance period, we have 2 conditions. The second condition I just want to make you aware of, I'd seen in their legend that they gave us no real style or color. So it all would be based on just a visual of what you're looking at for the rendering. And I had said something to Gabrielle about the legend not providing to say it was even red or white or anything, to go off of. So we put in there, I put in there as intended with the renderings. And we were a little concerned that maybe a manufacturer wouldn't have it, but we feel that these renderings, whatever they provide, should be kind of identified and to come up with what you're looking at, So it might be something of discussion before we iron out that last condition that night, but basically that's what it's about. It's like, how do you hold them to the rendering itself if you just have a color that you're looking at or whatever. So we wanted to get maybe what the model is or what the color is called or something, for the legend. And that was my basis for that condition.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Beatty, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that we're going to look at this blind again. They keep on coming up with the same renderings, and it seems like they just have a refusal to play ball at all. Is it incorrect to assume that they're going to come back in with the same renderings that we've had a problem with and not have any modifications to meet us part way?
Well, I'm hoping you were looking at the right renderings when you were saying this. The first the facade facing East Patrick Street, and they were showing you that night or at the workshop the 3 sides of primary building A that they were going to put the brick on and have it up to like the 3rd floor and have the white floor. So they did do that for this time, and then they did keep the buildings behind that and the inside interior pretty much, as you said, the same as what they had proposed. In the staff report, I think I mentioned that at that workshop, they had mentioned how they would maybe change the coloring of the cement to kind of mirror the brick and everything for transition. And I wasn't sure if they really had held to that. It doesn't look like they did with the rendering. So I'm not sure that followed through, or if they had even like promised they were going to do it. It was mentioned. And so I think that might be a small part of discussion that night, if you would want, instead of having all the brick on that other building or in this inside, if you would accept that, the coloring would be kind of transitional, that would have that impression the same. And I know there's some strong feelings on having everything met and for brick and everything. I think Gabrielle has, and I have put in the staff report how flexibility for the sites and trying to meet the intent of the guidelines. So I think it's for your judgment of how you feel you would be acceptable for what the view of the elevations would give you. But they really have come forward with the primary building A, and meeting that. And we would want to make sure that it's real brick and not just a vinyl brick color or something, and everything. So that to me is something for discussion. But that was, like I said, what the rendering that it's giving you right now is really more compliance with building A and not as much with building B. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty clear that my feeling, it's all of the buildings are in the overlay, not just the one on Patrick. And we can get letters from everybody in the world that we should cut them slack for that. But I mean, it's my position, and if this doesn't change by Monday, that I'm not going to vote for that. But that's my opinion.
Now, we really would not get another resubmission, even if I pass this information on to the applicant.
Right.
But that is something that at that night at the hearing, you can either say that as a group, if you all vote that way, that you want this to be continued throughout the whole site, or and they would have to make that change as a condition of approval and leave it to staff that we know that this is what you're going to receive. Or you could continue the case and have it come back the next meeting in 30 days. And that would be another resubmission from them. And then you would actually look at it yourself of what you discussed that night and changes. So you, like I said, any changes you all decide to vote on, you can have them be conditions of approval, or continue it and have them come back with another resubmission if you feel strongly about wanting to see it yourself. And I can pass this on to them, that to be prepared for a discussion, for them to know that you're still looking for more brick and comprehensive to the buildings, at least your viewpoint, Ryan. So anyway, that's all I can tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Manellis, do you have questions?
Yeah, I do. I actually have a comment and a question. And then I did look at the renderings, and they did seem to comply, with that building A. And it says here with building B, there's a red fiber cement at the top, I guess. And is that correct? I don't know if I saw it in the rendering, but that's what I read. And then the one building A is white, the white fiber cement, which is what we did see. I did have a concern that they did not provide, from what I read, well, it says the style and color, but I'm trying to remember at that workshop, I saw them with some materials and that they were handing out. I wasn't there. I was by video. Was that not the materials that we're talking about? I just want to clarify.
They provided brick, as they did the first time they brought the materials in. They've never, I don't think they've provided the fiber cement, any view of that.
Either white or red at all.
Right.
That was my other question. And I think my second question is when I think about this particular project, if I'm looking at the project from East Patrick Street being, I guess, south, uh, west of that is, the creek and, Cower Creek. And then um, north of that is, I think, like either a park or some residential homes, if I remember correctly. Wish I had taken pictures. And to the east side is, you can tell that there's a transition happening. And so I understand about the Carroll Creek overlay, but I'm also wondering about how does the Carroll Creek master plan and the implementation strategy play into all this? Like, you have the 420-F, and then you have the implementation plan, the master plan, and they're two different documents that have two different objectives. But how do you marry the two when you're making that decision? And I don't know if this is something that we should discuss on Monday, or we can discuss it now.
Well, I'm a little confused with what you're saying about the master plan.
On page,
Because
I guess maybe on page. Hopefully I have the right version. This is December 1991. I don't know if that's the right one or not, but that's the one that I looked at. Hopefully that's correct. On page 19, it talks about East Patrick Street to Island Street.
page 19, what are you looking at? You on the site plan?
No, sorry, I'm looking at the Carroll Creek Park Master Plan and Implementation Strategy.
Okay, well, that is something that I have not looked at for a long time, I have to admit, and that it has been something that's been out there for quite a while when the creek was, designed and stuff, and I don't even know what the date of it is now. Joe may know, but as for how this applies to this site plan,
I had the 1991, but go ahead.
91. Yeah, I started in 97. But anyway, not an excuse, but on the other hand, we pulling out old documents like that. I think that might have been something that was done when they were starting to, look at the creek after it was built and stuff. But anyway, as I said, I don't know how it applies to that document now. It's almost like what our Golden Mile concepts, and trying to apply them. They're more recent and objective, but I can try to pull it out and look at it. But right now, all I can say is that we base it on historic review for the Carroll Creek and our regulations that we have in the code. And as we said, some of those are flexible because of modifications and looking at location and stuff. I do agree. And it is a fact that you don't base your decisions on economics. And I think our alderman had made the point the last time at the workshop that there's other avenues for them if there is a hardship for them to seek out. So basically, that's all I can tell you. It's with your discretion of subjectivity of how strict you want them to follow those criteria that's listed in 420.
Dorothy, if I can add to that, the Carroll Creek Master Plan was like, we have the comprehensive plan, then it'll be the Carroll Creek Master Plan. And so the regulations at section 420 of the Carroll Creek were meant to implement the goals and objectives of the Carroll Creek Master Plan. Whether they fully implement all the goals and visions for the Carroll Creek Master Plan, probably not, but it was the staff's attempt at the time to implement what the vision was for the Carroll Creek. I think you can use the Carroll Creek Master Plan as a guiding document, but the regulations do come from section 420.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And my other question, and maybe that's for Monday night as well, I wanted to look at the Carroll Creek Overlay District boundaries. I noticed that on page 2, it talked about how the ordinance G2103 had increased, or had expanded, I should say, that district over by 2.18 acres. And so I just wanted to get a look at that. Do we need to wait till Monday or?
You want to get a look at what?
The map, there's a map. So I was using a map that was unofficial. The Carroll Creek Overlay District map that has the boundaries around it.
Yeah, well, it probably won't be shown on our GIS at the moment, but you can go on our GIS and pull up zoning and it will show you the outline of the whole Carroll Creek overlay and what properties it encompasses. But I don't know if they haven't caught up with, maybe they have not caught up with this specific property. I'd have to pull up and see. But anyway, but they had requested, of course, as you know, the whole Carroll Creek overlay to be placed on their project area. So that's where those extra 2 acres came from. And that, as always, an overlay as part of a zoning can be seen on our GIS.
Okay. I think Joe is talking. I'm not sure.
Sorry. What was the ordinance number?
Oh,
It's in the report.
G-1-03.
21 dash.
21-03.
Okay, I'll pull that up and we'll have it available Monday night for you to take a look at as well.
Thank you. That was my only questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just have one question, and it's more of a speculative kind of a question, but what would be the process moving forward if the urban certificate of urban design is not approved on Monday night?
Well, the urban design you did approve.
What
It's
did we-
the architectural compliance.
That's right. Yes.
And the architectural compliance, the drop dead date for the architectural compliance that has to be approved is before they can pull a building permit.
Okay.
So they're a little ways out. I mean, it has some time, you know, to be able to discuss it fully and everything. But yes, they have to have it before they pull a building permit. I will get that ordinance and send it to Joe or Jen and have them email it to you or whatever.
Okay.
And you're talking about the ordinance that just for the zoning that was increased, correct, Dorothy? Yeah. Okay.
So basically, if we do not approve this on Monday night and we do not continue it again on Monday night, then they will be required to go back, rethink things, and come back and apply again.
Right. You want to be able to, they can be continued. Joe, and I'm not sure, like a master plan and other plans, it can only be continued like once or twice or something like that. I don't know how we apply that to the certificate approval. I don't know if there would be unlimited continuances or not, but I would say if it's based on anything that we've had in the past, you know, you're going to continue it twice or whatever. Denying it means that they would have to come back again with a new application. But I think we aren't really ever really charging fee for these applications because it's all part of that that original fee that came in. So we can research that more, but yes, you would be able to continue this and have them look at it. And you can continue it for 30 days, or if they might request, hey, we need more time, we want 60 days, you know, so your continuance is very broad.
All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? I heard some people logging in, but I didn't see Alderman McShane. So, okay, Commissioner Beatty first.
Yeah, haven't we continued this once, or
We
did
have.
that not count because they came back at the very next meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we counted as continuance. It was just that we brought it back to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Beatty, Manellis. You're muted.
Well, I think it was a continuous. We placed it as a continuous in their letter. So yes, that
We
part of
did.
their
Yeah.
plan was continued.
Okay, so I just want to be clear on for Monday night. So in regards to the overlay, so now I guess some of us are worried about that B building that doesn't have the total brick around it. Is that what's happening? And so building A is fine because it has a brick on all 3 levels, and building 2, I guess the interior does not. Is that what we're discussing on Monday? Sorry, Monday. And then
Yeah. And I'm not sure all of building A has interior either brick, but I have to, but the interiors are more not brick, and the building B is not brick, as you had, as following the building A.
Any further questions or comments? Right, then it sounds like we're done with this item. And we shall move on to the next item, which is East Park. First lots 3 and 4, and then lots 5. And that sounds like that's all for Sherry. So Sherry, do you have anything to tell us about that?
No, just for lots 3 and 4, that site plan. We did have not so much a conversation, but back and forth emails with legal. And we just don't really have any case law or anything to really hang our hats on. So we're recommending approval. We're still saying that not a good idea, but we decided to move forward and recommend approval on that. And that's pretty much it for that one. And also for lot 5, there really isn't anything to add for that one. That one's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Beatty, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Manellis?
I just had a clarifying question about the M1 district. I think on page 5, the last 5 lines on, where it is. Oh, well, the top of page 5, the last 5 lines on that top paragraph. I think it talked about what is allowable when it says industrial activities, but it says that the odor, dust, and noise would not have any special requirements. But it would not allow hazardous materials, right? And the environmental impact would be within the property. Is that what's correct? Is that what I'm?
Yeah, I mean, the M1 district is more for light industrial type uses. So, and we wanted to demonstrate with the charts that we had attached that, you know, it isn't necessarily a more intense district in the GC. There are some overlapping uses there. So, but, you know, there are some other uses in the M1 that aren't necessarily aren't allowed in the GC district. So we wanted to make that, you know, comparison.
Okay. And in regards to the bottom of page 4, the zoning permit, it talks about how I would assume the city is the one that's enforcing that, having to go and ensure that the usage, I guess, within the location of the building is aligned with the zoning permit. And so I guess what I'm trying to understand is, you guys talked about, you know, this dual, not dual, but these split districts, you know, causing difficulties with enforcement and reviews, but it seems like you guys can still do the reviews. I'm looking at the bottom of page 4, where you talk about each time there's a new tenant or future tenants, you guys would have to evaluate the permits based on the usage in the physical space. So what exactly is, so I guess I'm trying to understand what exactly is the difficulties, because you seem to be able to do that type of enforcement.
It's just when whoever comes in for a building permit, they're going to have to distinguish which unit it is and whether or not it's one of the split zoned units or spaces. So, you know, we'd have to keep track of it that way because there, you know, the zoning line is an invisible line. So it may be difficult, to determine exactly which one of the units would be split zoned, but hopefully, when they come in for a building permit, they will be able to differentiate, between those units, which ones are in one versus another. And then I think there are 4 of them that are actually split zoned in the middle of the units. So yeah, they'll have to demonstrate that at the building permit stage.
And Dorothy, I might add to that as well, that, right now, staff realizes that the buildings are split zoned and the owner understands that as well. But as new tenants come in and they want to move walls and things, trying to explain this and trying to keep this in the memory of staff so that they know why this was done. I think that's the real difficult part. Right now, it's not the best situation, but we understand how it's working. 5 years now, trying to explain it to you as you move in and say, no, you can't do that because, there's this imaginary line running through the building, makes it very difficult.
Yep, point taken.
Yeah.
Understand. Let me see this other question. I did have a question about trip durations. I don't know if Cherian is there or not, but is he around?
Yes, he is.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. So I looked at the actual, I think it's the report, and I was just wondering, because I really don't have a baseline, so I was just curious, a baseline from which to measure. So I was just curious because I'm noticing that in the morning, peak hours, the total is 396, evening 434, and then Saturday midday peak hours 375. To me, it seems like it's a lot, or it's an increase in traffic flow, but I mean, I don't have anything to compare it to in terms of, what is the baseline. So is that correct? One. Number two, is that why they have possibly a provisional road approval, because they need to meet the 9 conditions, which would probably help to mitigate traffic? I'm just wondering about that. And then number two, with the traffic of the Rend across the way combined with the 2, I'm assuming that's a lot of traffic, but I don't know.
Yeah, so the traffic studies that were done as part of Monocacy Gateway, that was the original application that factored in all of that trip generation up to the limit that, they had a mix of uses, and they had the peak hour trip generation, and they tested the street network in the intersection as part of that, which included Ren as background at that point. So they did include Ren into that analysis. So the set of improvements, the mitigation that is seen on the provisional certificate goes on to mitigate impacts from all of these projects, including Ren. So end of the day, yeah, all these projects are factored into the future scenario, and the provisional certificate addresses how capacity is added to mitigate those conditions. Yeah, if you look at it, those specific actions where they required to contribute, that they are contributing to projects that are underway and being initiated by Ren being the first mover here in this corridor, were required to implement almost all of those improvements, and these new projects that came in behind them are contributing to the big capital improvement projects.
Okay.
Hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you. And I think I had one final question about the stormwater management. I noticed there was some talk about the environmental site design, and I guess we're still working out the stormwater management facilities hybrid approach. I'm just wondering, when will all that the final decisions come to fruition? I mean, I'm just curious. Everything is still kind of like in flux, still being worked out. So I was just curious about that. I mean, or maybe that might be a question for the applicant. I don't know.
I would think that they would have to have something finalized by the time they get to improvement plans, the improvement plan stage. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Commissioner Beatty, you had another question?
Yes, thank you. And this is just, I don't know if, I didn't want to ask it the other day, but is it often that the zoning plans don't follow lot lines, that it just seems so unusual that this line happens to go through? I don't know the history. I've heard that there's history on this project with the airport overlay, et cetera. But is this a typical thing that zoning lines cut through lot lines?
Yeah, this is definitely an oddity. When this property was brought into the city and zoned at the time, basically they took, because it's at an intersection, a major intersection, the general thought was that that would be a good spot for commercial, for a gas station, a Sheetz, that type of use. But at the time, the property was not subdivided. And for whatever reason, through the history, it is definitely an oddity. Usually we have lots that are split zone, but I think this is probably, other than the downtown, I think this is the first issue where we actually had a zoning line going through a building.
Okay, and I guess just the bureaucratic nature of rezoning is something that would take too much time. I kind of caught that at the end. Even though this is a extenuating circumstance, there's nothing that we can do to just clarify this and rezone it, or is that just too complicated a process?
And again, when it was brought in, I think the original way it was brought in, they said, I'm making up a number, that 20 acres on the corner was going to be zoned general commercial. In order to do corrective action on this, we would have to go through the rezoning process, which would be submit, take it through the planning commission, and then to the mayor and board.
Years and years. Okay.
But at least 8 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
So I just have a clarifying question about the issues revolving around the building permit process. And when they get the building permits and start building, they're going to be constructing the entire building, correct? They don't have to get a permit unit by unit. Is that right?
That's correct. And I think what was in the staff report is when a tenant comes in for a certificate of occupancy, we double check that to make sure that that use is permitted in that zoning district. So, when you come in for your pet grooming business, it's
Right.
probably permitted in the general commercial, but it's not permitted in the industrial side.
And so there's nothing that we can do at the time of the permitting or somewhere in there that basically for each of the units that they've built in there, have a list and say for units 1 through 10, these uses are okay. For units 10 through 11 through 12, these uses are okay, and just put that in officially in some recorded document somewhere there where it becomes part of the law pertaining to that building.
Yeah, and the issue with that is that the LMC is an evolving document, and so while today, and I'm making all this up, of course, pet grooming is allowed in general commercial and it's not allowed in industrial. 5 years from now, we may say, pet grooming, yeah, industrial, why not? It's a good use, it fits. And so if we do that, it's really going to make this situation, I think, worse.
Okay.
And I wanted to also say, when, like Joe said earlier, sometimes these units, when they're built out for their tenants specifically, the size of the units can change over time. Let's say, somebody wants their pet grooming business and they only need 5,000 square feet, but then you move out and the new tenant needs 8,000 square feet. So sometimes those the walls within the units themselves can change.
Okay. So basically, doesn't it boil down to that this is going to be a headache for the people who manage the property more than a headache for the city if it goes through this way?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a headache for the property owner, and there will be some bookkeeping for the city.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Commissioner Beatty.
Yeah, and I mentioned this at the last meeting. It's not only you're talking 5, 10, you could be talking 20 years. You can have a pet groomer in 5,000 square feet who wants to expand to 10,000 square feet and take the property, the space next door. And then you get into a whole different bunch of factors. I just know the way industrial buildings work. You can have a tenant that's got a expansion option for the space next door, but again, if they don't meet if they barely meet the criteria on one side, they're not going to meet it on the other, and then you get into another ball of wax. I don't know. It's a sticky wicket.
It's not ideal. I agree.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions or comments?
Nope.
All right. It looks like we are complete with this issue. Thank you, Sherry. The next thing on our agenda for Monday night will be the text amendment. Joe, do you have anything to tell us about that?
No, ma'am. Gabrielle's staff report's pretty complete. They're requesting to increase the height limit from, I believe, 45 to 60 feet in the PB zone. I believe Jen sent you a map with the areas where PB is located in the city. The only, it's along TJ Drive, it's along Monocacy Boulevard. There's some along West Patrick Street right before, I think it's Trinity Church, the church right next to West Patrick Street in the interchange. I forget the exact name of it. The only outlier in that whole thing is there is a small section, a small section of PB on Bogman's Lane. But given that these are, they look like houses and they're built on, or they're on housing lots, achieving 60 feet there would be very difficult to do, not only because of the space limitations, but when you increase the height, you increase the square footage, you'll increase the parking. But I think that's the only odd section of PB. All the rest are on major roads. And so staff doesn't have a concern with it, and we're recommending approval.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Beatty, any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Manellis, any questions or comments?
The one question that I had was actually answered by Joe already in regards to that area on East Patrick Street about the residential property and the likelihood of, that PB going up 60 feet. So I have no questions.
All right, I have no questions or comments. Okay.
Can I just add one thing before you all sign off? Is I looked at the GIS and that Carroll Creek overlay is including the whole property now on the GIS,
Right.
Dorothy.
And then I
Okay.
guess, thank you.
Thank
The
you.
last thing on our agenda is the training. Is there anything that we need to know about that today?
No, ma'am. Scott Waxter will be providing that training, and it's just, I believe it's for motion making, if I'm not mistaken. But he'll be there and he'll do the training for us.
Okay. And will that part also be open to the public and recorded and all of that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Great. Any either of you commissioners have questions or comments regarding the training?
Nope.
All right, then it sounds like we are done. If there's nothing else that we need to talk about, doesn't look that. Okay, well, we will. Oh, wait a minute. One thing from Commissioner Manellis.
Oh, no, I was saying goodbye.
Oh, okay. Well, bye-bye then. Yep, we'll adjourn.
Good weekend, all.
See you all on Monday.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.